What's up, Big Bear Nation? Welcome back to the homestead. So now that you made the decision that you're gonna get chickens, because I'm such a good person in arguing that chickens are useful in the homestead, the next question is gonna be, well, which kind of breeds do you get? And really you have to ask yourself 4 questions. The first one is, are you raising chickens primarily for eggs? Are you raising chickens primarily for meat? Are you trying to save an endangered breed? Are you trying to have a show animal for like FFA or for 4-H? Or do you just really like them and want them for a pet? If you're choosing chickens based on them being primarily for eggs, most of your egg layers are going to lay around 20 to 24 dozen eggs a year. That's one chicken. So that's half a year's worth of eggs from just one chicken, okay? But the problem with those is that their metabolism, all of their energy goes to making eggs. So they're not gonna be useful for much more than, once they stop laying, they'll only be useful for either as a pet or in the stew pot, because if they're around for a couple of years, that meat's gonna be a little tough. So you're gonna wanna use that for like fajitas and chicken noodle soup and stuff like that. Now, if you're raising chickens for meat, understand that those breeds are gonna be a lot more stocky. They're going to either be white-skinned, yellow-skinned, or black-skinned. Yeah, you heard me right. There are actually chickens with black skin out there. One is the Ayam Samani, and then the other one that I know of that we actually have here on the farm is a Silky. It's pretty weird. I'll show you that in just a minute. So if you're gonna go with a standard breed, you'd be talking about something like an Australorp or an Orpington or like a Cornish. Now, I'm not talking about like these guys here, because these are actually a hybrid. A regular Cornish, so like a Cornish hen, they'll grow, they're standard for meat, but they don't grow as fast or as big as the Cornish cross. Now let's talk about crosses. When you have a crossbreed like the Cornish cross, they grow a lot faster. They're gonna grow in about 8 to 10 weeks. The other really cool thing about these guys is that they take a lot less feed because of how long it takes to grow them. These guys, their feed conversion rate is about 2 pounds of feed to 1 pound of meat that they put on. So really good as far as that goes. However, they have health problems. They get heart disease because chickens are not meant to grow that fast, that quick. And these guys will have leg problems. They'll get illnesses. They are just not a very hardy bird. You have to hurry up, feed them full of food, and then hurry up and butcher them. Otherwise, you start losing birds. And that's what over the years, that's what we've dealt with. So this is probably gonna be our last year with Cornish, because they just aren't as hardy as some of the other breeds. Now these guys behind me, these are, I'm not sure if they're Freedom Ranger or ginger broilers. They're basically a red type of broiler. Now they grow a little bit slower, 12 to 14-ish weeks if you're really still pushing them full of food. But what we've done is we've put them in a tractor and let them graze over the grass. And so they've been with us a little bit longer. But what I've noticed is I don't have any health issues. Their legs are proportionate to their bodies, so I'm not having anybody with issues of walking around. They love to forage, which is also a really good point for a homesteader. You want a chicken that's not only going to feed you, but it's also going to help feed themselves as well. So there's not nearly as much feed poured to these guys as those Cornish. So this may be something that we continue in the future. However, they're not sustainable. This is still a hybrid. So you're not going to be able to breed this back and have a continuous line. So while they're great, still not sustainable. Now for the homesteader, the obvious choice is a dual purpose breed. And when I say dual purpose, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the best of both worlds. You have an egg layer that you can also turn into a meat production bird if you need to. So here on our homestead, we have things like the Rhode Island Red, we have Barred Rocks, we have some New Hampshires. All of those are kind of considered a dual purpose. They will lay eggs, but not as much as the standard egg layer, but they'll get plumpier than an egg layer would. They just won't get as big as a meat production size bird. So here on our homestead, what we do is as the chickens start laying eggs and we get them fertile, we will incubate those or let them hatch them out, and then all of those cockerels we will raise up. After about 20 weeks, we'll turn those into our meat birds. Now the positive side to that is that you're getting the best of both worlds, right? You're getting an egg layer and you're getting meat. The downside of it is if you're trying to focus on one or the other, you're not getting as many eggs, and it takes longer to grow out those birds, which means that you have a little bit more feed cost involved in them. However, most of your dual breeds are pretty good foragers, so you don't have to pump them full of food. You can turn them loose and they'll eat on their own as well. Now, just like with the other things we're talking about with the egg breeds and the meat breeds, even in the dual purpose world, there are hybrids. You'll have something called a sex link, whether it's a red sex link or it's a black sex link. Now the red sex link tends to be like a Rhode Island red crossed with a Cornish, and the black sex link is a Rhode Island rooster crossed with a Plymouth Rock or a Barred Rock hen. Now, if you think about those two and what I've told you, the second one, the black sex link, tends to produce a little bit more meat because both of those birds that they're combining tend to be a little bit heavier, whereas the red sex link will lay a little bit more eggs but be not as big as the black sex link. The reason why those are really popular, especially with people that are trying to do egg laying, those particular breeds will be a certain color provided on the sex. That's why it's called sex link. So your male chick will look different than your female chick. And that's really important in egg laying because you don't want to buy straight run and end up with a bunch of roosters. The only problem with those is that you cannot keep that going. That's not a sustainable source because it is a hybrid. Either one, once you get them from the hatchery, you have to continue to get them from the hatchery, or you can do it yourself. You can keep a Rhode Island red rooster and put them with a bunch of Barred Rock females, or put them with a bunch of Leghorn females and create your own. You can do that, but the hatcheries do it all the time, so I tend to lean towards the side of the hatchery if you're gonna go that route. But if you're trying to be sustainable, more power to you, give it a go. Now, if you're raising chickens for shows, exhibitions, FFA, 4-H, that kind of thing, there are certain breeds that are more popular than others in shows. Like this guy, the Silky. Remember I was telling you about him having black skin? Well, if you take a look at his feet and you look real close, you'll be able to see he's got black skin. See under his feathers there? See, he is completely black underneath all those feathers. See him? Black skin. As far as the shows go, you'll have standards for the breeds. And so some people will show like Rhode Islands and things like that, but you do have certain breeds that are more popular at shows, like bantams, silkies, cochins, that kind of thing, the smaller birds. We don't really raise them for that here. We just kind of think that these guys are cool. And so we have a couple that one of those characteristics that I was telling you when you're asking a question on what you're gonna raise them for, some of them end up just being pets. And we've never had silkies before, so this year we snagged up a couple and they've been actually kind of cool. We're pretty happy with them. Now, back to the show stuff and the pet stuff. This right here, I learned this year when I got this guy by accident. This is a sea bright. Now, if you're looking for something as a pet or just a lawn ornament that you can watch run around in your pasture or in your front yard, these guys are probably great. But one thing that I've learned, this guy is not very nice. He's very protective of his girls, which is probably good, but he's like a pound. He's not big at all. Like, I don't even know why I'm scared of him because he can't really do anything to me. But he thinks he can, and that's the problem. This is a sea bright. It is a bantam, so it's a standard bantam, but they're really not good for much. Even the females, the hens, they don't lay a whole lot of eggs. So you can imagine I was a little upset when I found out about that. But they are really cool to be able to look at. I mean, their feathers, I mean, he's beautiful. He's got an excellent plumage. He's a great alarm clock because he loves to crow. And that's one thing I will tell you. If you decide to get bantam little birds, these roosters pack a punch with their crow. I've heard a full standard rooster crow, and these small bantams will put them to shame. When you hear them on my property, it's more than likely one of these bantams, not one of the full size. Now, there are some people who raise chickens because they're trying to conserve a certain type of breed. Now, I know over at McMurray, they have certain breeds that they've been doing their best to build up. They're not even really selling them because they're trying to build up your population so that they can eventually put them out into the world so that people will continue to raise them. But that's not really our focus here. But if you're looking for those, I know if you get in touch with them over there, they'll let you know which breeds. I know one that used to be endangered, but they've worked really hard to bring back, is the Dominique. For a long time, there was the Dominique, there was the Copper Moran, and there was the Barred Rock. And they all look close to the same, but they're not the same. So a lot of people would think they had a Dominique, but they really didn't. So that's one that they've brought back with good breeding programs to be able to take it from the endangered back onto where a lot of people have them. But again, not our focus here, and especially not as a homesteader. So that's pretty much it. Once you've answered the question on what your motivation is for having chickens on your homestead, the only other thing that I would suggest you do your due diligence on is pay attention to your region. You don't want a bird that is meant to be in hot weather when you live up north, and you don't want a bird that's meant to be in the north living down in the south, because you'll have some serious issues, whether it be overheating or not being able to stay warm enough. These are all problems. Frostbite. And once you figured that out, just have fun with it, guys. Chickens are fun. They're a low maintenance animal to have on the property, and they can be very rewarding, whether it be eggs, meat, or just entertainment. Thank you for stopping by the Big Bear Homestead. God bless. Have a nice day.